Hola clase, today we are going to watch part 2 of our numbers lesson. Our last lesson covered numbers 1 through 100. If you haven't watched that or brushed up on that lately, please review those because it's very important to know the basic numbers so that you can learn these bigger ones that are up next. So today we're covering numbers 100 through 1 million. Let's go ahead and get started. The number 100 is 100 if it's by itself. But once you start adding a number after that, you change 100 to ciento. For example, if you want to say 101, you just say ciento and then you add the number uno to it. So 101. 102, 102. 110, 110. 120, 120. 125, 125. 158, 158. 199, 199. So you get it. It's pretty easy, very similar to what we do in English. Then once we get to the 2 and 3 and 400s, etc., you simply add the basic number like 200, you add the number 2 to the word cientos. So we're making ciento plural. For example, 200 is 200. And as we had done before, if you want to say a number like 211, you just add the number 11 to 200. So 211 is 211. 300 is 300. 400 is 400. But 500 is a little off. The reason is you would logically think that we would say 500, but instead it's 500. So I've underlined this as one that you just have to memorize. 500 is 500. 600 is logical. It's 600. 700 is slightly illogical because instead of saying 700, it's just 700. 700. 800 is 800. And 900 is another one I've underlined. Instead of what we would think to say 900, it's just 900. So all of these follow a logical rule except for 500, 500, 700, 700, and 900, 900. Please just memorize those three numbers, again because the rest follow a logical pattern and are easier to work with. So once we get to the thousands, you've got the word mil. So 1,000 is un mil, not uno mil, just un mil, like 1,000. And then it's very simple. Past that, you would just add any extra numbers, like 1,001 is un mil uno. 1,080 is just un mil ochenta. But there seems to be a general rule in Spanish. Once you've reached 1,100 or any numbers past that, they tend to drop the un and just say 1101 for 1,101. For 1,500, it would just be 1500. For 1,888, it would just be 1888. Again, every number from 1,000 to 100, we tend to put an un in the front of mil, but after that, we drop that un and just start with mil. Okay? Let's talk some more thousands. Once we get to like the 2 and 3,000s and so forth, it's very simple. So once we get to like 2,000, you just put dos in front of mil, 2,000. 3,000, 3,000. 10,000, 10,000. 80,000, 80,000. 90,000, 99,000. Even 100,000, you just say 100,000. It's very simple. So you're just putting a bunch of those numbers together, just like we would do in English. All right, next up, we get to a million, and that's a cognate. It's just pronounced un millón. Un millón. So if I wanted to say like 1,001,000, I would just say un millón, un mil. Very simple. And so you just keep adding those numbers just like we've been practicing. However, before I leave you, I do want to mention one more thing that's very important. When using Spanish numbers, and I say only because while there are commas and periods in sentences, those don't change. So only when you're using Spanish numbers, the commas and the dots are actually switched. They're flip-flopped. For example, in English, when we say the number 1,000, we have 1 comma 000. But in Spanish, that number 1,000 is 1.000. Same thing for pricing. In English, when we say it's $1.50, we have that dot there. In Spanish, that's replaced with a comma. So keep that in mind. Again, though, in sentences, it doesn't change. A period is a period and a comma is a comma when reading sentences. This only occurs in numbers. So I know this was a lot of information to cover in 5-6 minutes. Feel free to watch this again, let it all sink in, and definitely practice when you see an English number, practice translating that into Spanish until you get the hang of it.